And before proceeding for the question answers, I would request all the speakers to turn on their camera for a speaker shot. We'll take a picture of all the speakers. So I request Dr. Bharat Shah, Dr. Vismay sir, Dr. Matthew sir, Dr. Tejas sir, and Dr. B.M. Makkar sir, and Dr. Yash sir to turn on their camera, please. And the technical committee, can we have the gallery view?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
We have many questions coming.
We have many questions coming, so please, can we have the gallery view fast?
So we can start with questions.
Okay, yeah. So done. So now we'll start with the question answer round. We have many questions coming. So I request Vismay sir and Bharat sir to take over the question answers. They are in the question answer chat box.
We have a question.
It is not visible.
Vismay sir, you're on mute. Okay, so we have a question from Bhomadi Bhavya that when a patient gets diagnosed with type 2 diabetes mellitus, which drug therapy is better to start with? DPP-4 inhibitors alone or combination of DPP-4 inhibitors and AMP metformin or metformin alone?
Yeah, shall I take this question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And you can keep your video.
Yeah, thank you. So this actually, you should consider the various clinical features. One of the main things being the baseline A1C of the patient. Suppose the patient has the baseline ANC of say 7.5 or above, it is better to have a combination of DPP-4 inhibitor and metformin. If you are putting up only those two choices, I would go for a combination of metformin with DPP-4 inhibitor. But suppose your A1C is not that high, say it is around 6.7, 6.9, and you get diagnosed as diabetes, then I would stick on to just metformin. Only if you have a metformin intolerance, I would consider going for a DPP alone, DPP-4 alone as a choice of therapy, and that will be my answer. Thank you.
We have one more question from Dr. Teest, that classification of diabetes versus clinical diagnosis in clinic. So if anyone can comment on this.
Maybe all three speakers can. Please. Yes, sure.
Yeah. So the difference between more or less the kind of patients that we see normally in a clinical practice, we know that they are either type 1 or type 2, and accordingly it helps us primarily in treatment of the patient. Whether you the confusion comes primarily when they present in a certain age group where we are not very sure whether they are going to be type 1 or type 2, and that is where it is important to diagnose them clearly, and that's why the classification guidelines are very clear. It is important again to find out by means of certain tests, by doing C-peptides or GAD antibodies, etc., which helps us to mainly differentiate between type 1 and type 2. The important point of discussion comes in a case like LADA, or what now comes under different type of diabetes or hybrid forms of diabetes, whether they are a slow evolving type 1 presenting late, or whether they are type 2 who is already into that failure of beta cell. So the classification is important in terms of theoretical, but when it comes to clinical diagnosis and diagnosing the clinic, we are more or less sure about when the patient comes to us whether they fall into which category. And Dr. Makkar and Dr. Matthew would like to add anything to this?
Yeah, I also agree to the same thing. I think most of the patients, by the virtue of their phenotype, will reveal the diagnosis, whether they are type 1, type 2, or some other forms of diabetes. So when you are confused whether they don't fit into the typical spectrum of type 1 or type 2 diabetes, then you definitely need to put in your investigations. And you may not need to do C-peptide for a very typical patient of either type 1 or type 2. But someone who doesn't fit into that, someone who over a course of disease has a rapid progression of beta cell dysfunction, then you would suspect a sort of autoimmune thing going on. or patient has got multiple autoimmune problems along with that diabetes. So even if his phenotype fits into type 2, you would like to make sure that it's not autoimmune diabetes. So I think phenotype transmission, autosomal dominant transmission across 2 generations at least, you would think of MODY. So I think when it doesn't fit into your typical picture, yes, you need to fall back on investigations. And always remember that despite all the investigations that you do, you would still classify certain patients as unclassified in your file. And eventually over many year period, you tend to reclassify them and put into some of these boxes or groups of diabetes. That's it.
I think more important issue, than just labeling the diagnosis right at the time of first seeing the patient or subsequently is how to manage them. With the more and more younger patients presenting in clinics as diabetes patients, you are always at a dilemma that this is a obese patient. Now, is it type 1 or type 2? Now, even if you do a C-peptide with hyperglycemia state, then you may be having, very erratic values. You may not be able to conclude anything. So most important thing is, whenever there is a doubt about diagnosis, always initiate the therapy as if you are treating a type 1. Then you can never be wrong. If you treat type 1 as type 2, then you may end up on wrong foot. But once there is a confusion and the patient has severe hyperglycemia, it's always best to initiate therapy as if the patient is type 1 and take your time to make a diagnosis.
Thank you so much, sir, for this insight. And thank you all, Makar sir, then Tejas sir, Vismay sir, Bharat sir, and Matthew sir for joining. So now we'll proceed for our next session. So thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
very much.
Thank you.